Hey, welcome to 5-Minute Math. This is Carrie Rhinehart. In this video, I'm going to be looking at synthetic division. If you're following along from the text, this is Algebra 2, Unit 2, Lesson 4. Now, Lesson 4 is both long and synthetic division, but I did a video earlier about long, so this is synthetic division. Now, remember, you can only use synthetic division if you're dividing by a linear factor. So what you're dividing by, this couldn't be x, there it goes. If this was x squared or x cubed, or there's anything other than just x and a constant, you can't do synthetic division. But this is a linear factor, so we can here. So when you're doing synthetic division, first thing you need to do is set what you're dividing by equal to 0, set the factor equal to 0, and solve for x. Okay? So I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and then divide by 2. And this is a more complicated one than if it was just x minus 1 or x plus 3. But I wanted to show you a more complicated one because if you can do this one, the other ones will be a lot easier. So we get x equals 1/2. This is the value we're going to use out here, 1/2. Okay. And then we need to look at the coefficients of all of the variables, all the terms here, and if anything was skipped, if there was if it went from x to the 4th to x squared and it skipped x cubed, you'd have to put a 0 in the placeholder. But we don't have that here. So I've got a -6 for x to the 4th, a -3 for x cubed, a 1 for x squared, a 7 for x, and a -3 for the constant. And then I'm going to draw a line right here and leave space in between. So the first step with synthetic division is to bring your first coefficient down. So just bring the -6 here. And then we're going to multiply this value by this. Okay, and we're going to do that each time. So -6 times half, or half of -6, is -3. And then you add at this point. The first time you just bring down, but then you add. So I've got -3 plus -3. Well, that happens to be -6. Okay. And then I need to multiply again. So -6 times half. Well, we know what half of -6 is. It's -3. But now we need to add 1 plus -3 is -2. So I need to multiply -2 times 1/2. So what's half of -2? Well, half of -2 is -1. And now I add 7 plus -1. 7 plus -1 is +6. And then I need to do 6 times 1/2. Well, half of 6 is 3. And now I need to add -3 and 3. Well, -3 plus 3 is 0. So in this case, because the very last value is 0, that means 2x minus 1 goes into this evenly with no remainder. Okay, so it is a factor. So if you end up with 0 for your remainder in synthetic division, what you divided by is a factor, which means 1/2 is a root. This function will cross the x-axis at 1/2. But for this lesson, we need to be able to write what the answer is. So notice we started, let me get a different color, with x to the 4th here. With synthetic division, your answer goes down 1 degree. So this would be x to the 3rd. This is x squared. This is x, and that's a constant. So I get -6x cubed minus 6x squared minus 2x plus 6. And there's no remainder. Now, one last thing on this problem. Since if your linear factor, what you're dividing by, doesn't have a leading coefficient of 1. In this case, it doesn't. That's not just, if it was x minus 1 or x plus 1 or x plus 4, you'd be done at this point. But that's not the case here. There is a 2 in front of that x. So if that is the case with synthetic division, you have to divide the final answer by that 2. Whatever that coefficient is, you need to divide it. So that gives me -3x cubed minus 3x squared minus x plus 3. This would be your final answer. All right, I hope you guys have a great day.